Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unimportant Questions. This is going to be episode 7, and today we're going to talk about friendship, which is a little more abstract than some of the concrete topics that we've talked about, but
it's good raw material, though. I feel like it was a great springboard.
Yeah. I'll tell you, you want me to tell you the inspiration for it? I was listening to your podcast with Tim. Was it 3 or 4 episodes of top albums?
Yeah. One is yet unpublished.
And you guys mentioned in there a lot how you're like friends, maybe best friends, you might say. And I have always found that topic really interesting. And I was interested to see just like, well, you guys would sort of talk about it, but then while you're talking, you are kind of experiencing your friendship together. And then like all the observations that came from that. And I was listening to that and I was just like thinking of topics. And I thought, man, it would be fun to talk unimportantly about friendship.
It's perfect too, because I think mine and your friendship is interesting as well. Because I was friends with Stephanie first.
Yeah.
And then
my wife.
Stephanie. We've become friends through the podcast, and it's almost the only time we've hung out.
That's true.
Is by podcasting. So in a way, there's a record of our friendship developing.
Yeah.
Like the only other time is like basketball or Facebook.
Yeah.
So, kind of cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I was definitely thinking of that too, because I was comparing our podcast to yours, and I was like, how's it different? Since me and Matt really aren't, we're friends, I'd say.
Yeah.
But we're not friends on the level that you and Tim are.
Yeah, there was a moment early on in our podcast, mine and your podcast, where you said something to the effect of like we're friends, like kind of, or something, or like I don't know you that well, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's true. I mean, basically, this is a friendship petri dish, and we're seeing what germinates.
And now we're going to talk about
record.
it.
Yeah.
That's so meta.
Yep.
But that's what we do here at Unimportant Questions.
Yeah.
It's also been a while because Stephanie, my wife, had a baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
not that I haven't told you that before, but now it's recording. So.
Hey, now you've got it on tape. And the baby was born 2 weeks ago, so I haven't been available. But I've been desirous to do it. As you know, I've sent a few messages. I was like, maybe I'm bugging him with these messages. Like,
not at all. It's good that you had another baby, because your oldest, Rocket, is friends with my oldest, Sage.
Yeah.
And I have another daughter, Annie, who's
That's
3 months old. And so you needed to have another kid to balance the friendship of the kids.
Yeah. So we are in similar groups in terms of we're about the same age. We've probably been married about the same amount of time-ish.
You know what? That's probably partially why we're friends.
True. That actually does have something to do with one of the questions I was going to ask. So should we get right into it then?
Yeah, all right. Because that does spark some good friendship questions.
Then I'll just
start off the bat.
I'll start with that question. Okay. It's kind of worded weird, but I think you'll get it. Unlikely friendships versus likely friendships.
Sure. Yeah. It is hard to be friends with people in different life situations than you. Even something as simple as having kids or not having kids can seem to affect like the quantity of friendship interaction. Maybe not the quality, but it's like the more things you have in common, the easier it is to find ways to be friends,
to be together.
Yeah.
And
you can have one thing in common with someone, but a lot of other things not in common, and then that friendship kind of becomes less likely. So,
but at the same time, have you ever had an unlikely friendship that kind of surprises you every time you think about being friends with that person?
Yeah. Sounds like you do too. Do you have one in mind?
I don't have one specifically in mind. I've just always noticed them because they always strike me as odd. And I think that was the thing I was most interested in, was being aware that you're friends with somebody that you're like, well, this is really bizarre. I wish we would be friends, you know? And then that person, like, also probably being aware of that too, but then being like, well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But, like, I'm just interested in that space.
Yeah. You know? It's like the fox and the hound type friendships.
Yeah, totally.
So sometimes you'll have
there's whole movies based on this premise.
Yeah, friends that are at odds with like have a conflicting premise. You know, I think I have a friend named Jensen who I met. He was my roommate when I was already married, but I was living in Manhattan.
Oh.
And he travels with like pseudo Broadway performing type things, and he's very gay, and he's like really extroverted, and I mean, I'm extroverted too, but in a lot of ways our personalities differ quite a bit, and obviously our lifestyles vary quite a bit, but for whatever reason, like, it was easy to be friends with him.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with him, and you know, maybe that's a fox and the hound type friendship. So then that kind of digs at a deeper question of like, so what makes someone a friend? Like, so I'll reflect that question back to you. Like, if it's not common interests, what makes someone a good friend?
That's a good question. That's so deep.
It's getting important. Better tread lightly.
Whoa, everybody, calm down. It is a good question because I think it's valid in the sense that it's not common interests. I think it's still common interests. Probably. I think if you were to look into your relationship, your friendship with that person, Jensen, you said their name is, you'd find that you do have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Certain things that you would expect would make your friendship likely don't exist. But other more underlying, more important stuff is there. And that's what allows you guys to be friends. What are some of the things? Can you think of some of them?
I'm just thinking, like, you ever meet someone and you just click with them, and it's not because of a common interest. It's just like the way you talk, or kind of just the way that you approach social interaction. I think that's what it is with Jensen. I mean, and he's not a close friend, really, especially since it's been a long time. And if it weren't for Facebook, like, I wouldn't have kept in touch with him very much.
Yeah.
But I think that was kind of what it was, is like the way that we would talk makes it easy. So
it just kind of came naturally.
Yeah. I think that's the same with us. Like, the way that we conversate.
Yeah. In fact, I think with our friendship, there's a little bit of pressure or sort of expectation there for us to be friends because we do have so many things in common, at least on the surface.
Yeah.
And I almost think that pressure gets the way, it's, at least for me, gets in the way of us becoming better friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I feel like maybe I'm resistant to it and sort of rebellious. Like, well, just because I should be friends with him doesn't mean I have to be friends with him.
Just because we both like thrice, like, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And so, like, part of the cool thing of this podcast is, like, sort of pushing through that weird pressure that exists.
Sometimes you never get through that, actually.
I know.
A lot of people in my life that we never broke through that.
Yeah, and you felt like the whole time, you felt like I could have been really good friends with that person, I think.
That's weird how that happens. I wonder why. So here's a question for you. How can you secure a friendship with someone that is something of an arranged friendship? Like, do you have any techniques, tips, or tricks?
You could start a podcast with them.
That's the only way. It's proven.
Yeah, I mean, essentially to become friends with somebody, you have to interact with them. So if there is pressure there, you have to work through it. You have to get them to, you have to be around them, right? I mean, that's kind of the main hurdle. So what's nice about having started a podcast is we have a premise. Yeah. Or not necessarily a premise, but an expectation to interact with each other.
It's a friendship vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, some of my good friends from, like, school, I'm not as I'm not as close with because we don't really have an excuse
Yeah.
to spend time together. You know what I mean?
I do. Oh yeah, totally.
So, and if we did have something like a podcast or something like that, maybe we would be better friends.
You know, not to jump on the podcast bandwagon too much there, but I mean,
a creative project.
Tim and I were great friends in high school. We had a band, and
Mm-hmm.
the band facilitated our friendship for several years. And then after we both went on LDS missions, we came back and went to different schools, and we didn't have a friendship vehicle anymore.
Right.
And we were still friends, and I probably still would have called him my best friend, but we didn't even talk that much. Like, we didn't have our Venn diagram of friendship barely overlapped anymore.
Right.
You know? And then starting the podcast again with him a little over a year ago has rejuvenated the friendship.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like first it was the band and now it's this.
Yeah.
So you gotta have something. With
Yeah.
some friends, there's this thing where you just get together and hang out, right?
Mhm.
But not all friendships seem to be able to work in that way.
Yeah. Well, like, have you ever had a friend where you really like them a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Not but
I know what you mean.
And so you're kind of always trying to find excuses
Mhm.
to like get in touch or to hang out or whatever.
Yeah.
That kind of becomes a tricky situation too. I have a good friend Marcus who lives in Louisiana now, and when we were at school together, we would, we were both art majors and we would hang out.
Mhm.
But now it's like, if something has to remind me of him or something, or like I'll have to watch a Bill Murray movie and text
Yeah.
him or something.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I have some friends like that too. I have a friend that lives out in Atlanta and I want to talk to him, but yeah, I just kind of forget. And then it'll be something inevitably that reminds me of him. It causes me to text him.
You brought that up with video games, how that is kind of a friendship vehicle for you.
Yeah, it's actually really nice. It has allowed me to stay or even become closer friends with people that would probably have faded out of my life a little bit more. It's actually caused me to meet new people that I would consider friends, people I've never met before, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's sort of scary to become friends with people in general, and then like online, it's also even maybe a little bit more scary.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it is another like friendship vehicle, like you say. We get in together and like be, I guess essentially being friends with somebody is just being around somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess if you break it down to its core, like that's what friendship is.
Mm-hmm.
That was a question I had for you, is like when you're a kid, like say your friend has a Nintendo 64 and you don't, and so you want to hang out with them to play Nintendo 64.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, it was like they called that like using them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's just using me, and it obviously has a negative connotation, and it probably should in certain ways,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe that's not that problematic. Like,
Yeah.
if you use someone for the friendship, like, doesn't mean you're not actually friends with them.
Right.
That's just what accommodates the friendship.
You're still like in the room with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can speak to this because I didn't have any speaking, like I specifically went through the example you're mentioning. And I did feel bad at the time. I felt like maybe I am, taking advantage of somebody because they have a Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
But I've since got my own Nintendo,
Mm-hmm.
and I still only play it with other people. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I still don't really play it by myself very much. So I don't feel like that could be as true.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of it would depend on how the interaction went once you were hanging out playing Nintendo.
Yeah.
If you were, having a good old time, then sure. But if they're just like, can I have a turn now? And they're just wanting to
And you're like, why does this
play
person have to
single
be
player
here?
GoldenEye, and you just watch them play your Nintendo. That's different.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny you bring that up, but it's just another example of us being from the same sort of population, having experienced the exact same sorts of things.
Well, in a way, like, you could, if you had some kind of insecurity about our friendship, assuming you don't.
I have insecurities about every single thing, so I do, but it's okay. It's pretty normal.
Yeah, okay, so assuming, we won't assume that. We'll just go with if you were stewing on that insecurity and you thought, well, Matt's not actually my friend. He's just using me because I have this sweet podcast equipment.
I have 2 microphones.
Yeah. Like,
he only ever comes over to record podcasts.
You could talk yourself into that, and then our friendship could dwindle and die because that you got hung up on that. But there's something authentic to our friendship, and this is a big part of what that is. So
yeah, it's almost a matter of choice, like how I choose to perceive it. Totally. Yeah, I think that's true. I feel like there's a feeling of moving on. Should we go to the next
I think
question?
you're right. I had a question loosely related to what we were just talking about, but it was a few minutes ago. So
do you feel like it's
well, just thinking about like
bandwidth,
like in your life, bandwidth meaning like your capacity for time and energy exerted towards other individuals or endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
So do you, Jaron, subscribe to the friend capacity limit, like mentality or theory?
Oh, like, are you referring to an actual theory that we can only have with like a certain amount of friends?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally do. In fact, I think that goes into all like social circles. Like, I don't like to complain too much about the government because I feel like there's a lot of unfounded complaints about the government out there. But I do feel like it makes sense that the smaller the group of people that are self-governing, that there's a lot of pros to that. Like, I always feel
accountability and whatnot.
Yeah, and just like it's easy to be critical of something like the federal government, and this applies to friendship too.
Sure.
Because they're far away, they're like in another city. They're people we've never met before. They're only people we see through media. And like the same goes for friends. It's easy. It can be easy to think like my friend who lives in Atlanta, that maybe, it can be easy to kind of convince myself that, well, maybe we're not really friends anymore, because he's far away.
Distance, yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to do with the amount of people, but at some point you can only keep so many people close to you.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's only so many hours in the day and you have to be doing stuff,
Yeah.
And a lot of our friendships are based on like what we're already doing throughout the day.
Seem to have like the highest leverage friendships. It's like we can occupy our kids and hang out with friends.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly like we can be friends because we have the added benefit of, well, if we hang out together, our kids can hang out together and play and like pay attention to each other, and we can pay attention to each other.
Yeah, it taps into that kind of sad truth of like, if you get married and all your friends, if all your friends are getting married and you're not, then like they're gonna drift away from you. In most cases, and that kind of stinks, but it's totally understandable. Maybe less so with marriage, because that's not totally prohibitive as far as like hanging out with a single friend, but it does just a matter of practicality.
Yeah, it totally is. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like that person, the person that's drifting away from you, not wanting to be friends with you anymore, although it can feel that way sometimes. Yeah. It is certainly just like, well, we're going with like what you say, what's practical.
Right.
Or even if you do get married, you're going to want to hang out with couples so that you can split off into what feels like a natural group of two. The husbands talk to each other and the wives talk to each other, which I'm not saying is how it always goes, but that seems to be like an easy thing. Yeah,
that's the path of least resistance.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like family too. Like I live pretty close to most of my family. They live up in Bountiful, and there's like that phrase, you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose.
That phrase?
That one.
Is that the phrase you meant to say?
Just the first sentence, but yeah. Unless that's separated by commas. Anyway.
But you can pick your family's nose. Is that the implication you're going for?
You can't pick your family.
Right.
You can pick your friends. So logically speaking, there's a higher probability of you enjoying spending time with your friends more than spending time with your family, due to the fact that you chose your friends because you like them. Your family, you may or may not like them in some regards.
Yeah.
And it also ties into the bandwidth thing. Like, I want to spend time with my family, and I enjoy it. Fortunately, I'm good friends with my family, but it does come at the expense of very rarely having any time to spend time with friends who I would like to spend more time with.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I was going to point out the counter argument of, like, I find myself going to hang out with family because I feel stress when I think about asking my friends if they want to hang out, because I don't know.
Social pressure.
Yeah, like, or it'll be like I'm watching Rocket for the day, and it's like, well, do I like go, I call a friend, or I go on Facebook and be like, does anybody want to hang out?
Yeah.
Or do I just go to my parents' house where I don't even have to call?
Yeah.
And then just show up, and I know they'll be happy to see me, you know?
Yeah.
The family thing has gotten rid of some sort of, like, even need to ask, which actually, can I just segue that into my next question?
Yeah. I give you permission to do that.
Can a friendship become family?
Yeah. I had a similar thought too. Like, in society, there's a trend. It's not a super new trend, but where it's like, family is any close group of people, right? Like, like you hear people like, oh yeah, they're such good friends, they're family. I could go for that. I mean, I don't have like a big opposition to that. Tim's basically a brother, and like, he comes to family events where it's just my family and Tim, and so I think, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be that separation of whatever. I shouldn't say always. Maybe there are situations where that almost literally dissolves to where it's like there's no differentiation. But
yeah,
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it can be. I don't think I've gotten there with anybody. I think I've gotten close, but I feel like it must be true. I feel like definitely there's a large percentage of people in the world who have had family situations way different than ours.
Yeah. And
sometimes those family situations almost encourage somebody becoming family with their friends, you know.
Yeah.
They're in like a hostile family situation. Sure. Or
I've
even just somebody that like are just a group of people that are so detestable.
Yeah.
And like, what is family? Are like, there are things that define what a family member is. You get into a tight spot, financially, or just like your car breaks down, any sort of thing. Or you can
bring your kid over without calling first.
Yeah. If you did that with a friend, I would say you've achieved like a family sort of status with that person. If you feel that comfortable with somebody, that you can do family-like things with them.
Yeah, I think like with my dad or my siblings, there's virtually nothing I can do that's gonna, that they're gonna disown me or something. Right? And so don't live in fear of like ruining our familyness.
Yeah.
And maybe a friend that's reached family status is like, you can tell them things and you're not afraid of losing them as a friend.
Yeah.
That would make sense, because I had a friend. I mean, he's still a friend, but I thought he was family level. And then we had a falling out, which is rare for me in my life. Like, I haven't had many falling outs.
Yeah.
And it kind of proved that like it wasn't quite family level. And that's okay. It's just it did become more apparent what it was. So
yeah, I guess but you can have. I always want to fight against that idea though, because you can't have a falling out with family.
You're right.
But at the same time, they'll kind of always something about family more than friends. Like, they'll come back to you.
Yeah.
They'll stick around in a way.
Right.
Or not like not as like you can't avoid them almost, you know. And maybe that is the case with friends. I don't know what's happened to the friend that you had a falling out with if you just haven't been in contact with them.
Yeah, no, we're back being friends.
Okay.
It's just there's always kind of that like cloud in our past.
Yeah.
You know? But
yeah. And maybe that's affected like your level of friendship currently for sure. I'm always curious about that because I do have friends that I've gotten, you know, where at least even where we've said maybe we're best friends or there's this sort of almost family-like feeling.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was me, if I was bringing my own like insecurity about a friend's ability to be a family member, like to that. Yeah. Or if it was them and I felt pressure, you know, to not like fully embrace that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of little things that contributed or that do contribute to that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was probably a mixture of both. But I still always find that interesting as I get like closer to people. I'm always thinking about like how it's happening too at the same time that it's actually happening.
Yeah. It's hard to not like overanalyze things sometimes.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that way when there's an arranged friendship in play. Like, and that tends to happen in like work or church or something. Like, let's say in church you have like an assigned person to visit, right? They do that in our church where you kind of are assigned to be friends with them. And it's way harder to become real friends with them at first because it's like they know that you're supposed to be friends with them. But there's nothing unauthentic about me trying to be friends with them. It's just the simple fact of like they know that I was assigned to this. It probably just takes longer for them to be able to gauge like authenticity and you know how genuine I'm being or whatnot.
That goes back to the question of unlikely versus likely friendships. You know, this friendship has like been artificially made likely. Like you guys will be friends.
Yeah.
And like that sort of messes it up almost a little bit.
It does. It makes it harder. And it can work out. I mean, I'm good friends with people now that I was assigned to be their friend at one point.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case. So it just depends. I have a similar question with unlikely friends. Do you have any experience with frenemies?
Yeah, I thought about this while we were talking about it. I don't know are you talking about this thing that I'm about to say, which is someone that you were supposed to be friends with, but you just couldn't, like...
It just didn't work?
Yeah, you're like, hey, by all accounts, we should be friends. And you may even want it on some level. And it's just like, I can't do this person.
This is not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not quite how I meant it. I don't know if I have experience with frenemies, but the Google definition was a person with whom one is friendly despite a fundamental dislike or rivalry.
I think that counts.
It could count for sure.
I think there's similar things like, because I think the friendship part of it indicates that you do on some level think you ought to be or want to be friends with this person. But like in some way, I'm like thinking of specific people, multiple people that I'm like, man,
it's just not happening.
I just don't like, I don't know.
The opposite seems to hold true for the definition of frenemy, where it's like in all accounts you should be enemies, but you still just kind of like them somehow.
Oh yeah.
Like you're still friends. It's almost like arch rivals that like you're glad you disagree because it's fun or friendly. You know?
That's even closer to the fox and the hound example that you made. Like, and by all accounts, the hound should want to kill the fox, and the fox should be aware of that and not want to be friends with him.
Yeah, and that makes me like think about, well, in what specific parts of my life do I have rivals? And that's probably why I don't have frenemies, because I don't know. Maybe like someone you play basketball with every week who just like you hate the way they play. Yeah. And like you want to block them every time they have the ball, but like you're still friends with them.
Yeah, that is one specific example I'm thinking of for sure. Yeah, like somebody that kind of challenges you on a level that challenges your identity. Sure. Whereas maybe your regular group of friends, you feel like you fit comfortably, but you feel like if this person were to come in, they'd steal some of that space that you that you exist in, you'd be like, they'd see him as sort of me, and I wouldn't like that. So maybe it's like they're too similar to you.
Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Maybe. That also kind of speaks to maybe why arranged friendships can be difficult, at least at first, is like, well, am I even going to like this person, Or are they going to be like, how am I going to exist with this person, this unknown?
It's like suddenly I'm really picky.
Yeah.
Because in general, like, why would you want fewer friends?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to be picky, but now that you're assigned to be their friend, or, your wives are friends, so it's like, well, maybe I don't even like this person.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's sort of, I guess it is just really a reflection of like your own insecurities of like, how is this person going to infringe on my identity that I have for myself?
Well, since we have to wrap up, I have a parting word of advice. This coming from 2006 Belchertown High School class friend list. Forgot about that fact until just now. I've never like regretted being friends with someone.
Yeah.
Like, friendship is very rarely a burden. And so, yes, you have a certain bandwidth for people you can hang out with, but I've definitely found that being friends with more people is just happier and better.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of that, like you said earlier, comes down to a choice, like choosing to be friends with someone rather than choosing to think they're annoying or not be their friend.
Yeah.
Can be a happier way to live.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. And I think with that, we should end.
Yeah, that was like, maybe you could add some really nice, sweet music over my voice there. Like violins and birds chirping or something.
Yeah, something to get people inspired.
Yeah.
We haven't really ended on any sort of inspiring note before. But it's exciting.
Yeah. What a great way to
Cool.
Hey, good topic, Jared.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, thanks for coming over and being my friend, Matt.
Yeah. Thanks for being my friend, and thanks for having 2 microphones.
Hey, anytime. Yeah, thanks for using me for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for accommodating the use.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and have a great week. This has been an episode of Unimportant Questions.